If you're able to find those transcontinental routes where you're flying a Delta One seat across the US, that's a great way to use those certificates if you are able to snag a spot. That's one of the premium ways to experience the Delta One for essentially free or as a perk of your credit card and be able to get upgraded into it.
Hey there, points people. You just heard a clip from Janelle on a Jet. Janelle Rupkalvis is a savvy travel hacker and content creator who shares her journeys with a captivated audience on social media. With an impressive passport stamp collection of 23 countries and counting, Janelle's latest feat was a breathtaking 40,000 Maldives adventure, all achieved through her expertise and points. As a fifth-year Delta Diamond Medallion member, Janelle offers invaluable insights and insider tips on achieving status and maximizing travel rewards. With a dedicated following of over 160,000, Janelle's unique perspective on exploration has solidified her position as a leading voice in the travel community. In this episode, Janelle and I talk about the perks of Delta Elite status, how to spend less to earn Delta status, and finding value with Delta SkyMiles. Janelle also mentions the companion certificate she gets with the Delta SkyMiles Platinum American Express card to bring a partner along on a domestic flight in main cabin for no more than the cost of taxes and fees. Remember, if you decide to apply for the Delta Platinum or any other card, never apply directly through Google. Always use a friend or creator's referral link. If you're interested in supporting this show when you apply for your next card, check out geobreezetravel.com/cards. And if you're not sure what card is right for you, I offer free credit card consultations at geobreezetravel.com/consultations. And we have links to the Delta cards and the free consultation form for you in the show notes as well. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast, a show for anyone wanting to level up their travel hacking lifestyle. I'm your host, Julia Menez. I'm a travel hacker, coach, speaker, Filipino-American ENTJ who loves solid travel gear and using shortcuts on spreadsheets. On this show, I'm on a mission to bring you travel hackers from all walks of life to help you level up your travel hacking game. We dive into credit cards, miles, points, strategy, mindset, and the secrets behind how to travel the world for next to no cost. So let's get hacking. Hey Janelle, welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here, and I'm also excited to talk about how to get status with Delta, which honestly is the program that I know the least about. I'm pretty good with Star Alliance, pretty good with One World, but one time I had Delta Platinum status, and it was purely because of a status match. I used it once, and then it went away. So today we are going to talk about how to actually get Delta status or get it back if you are like me. But before we jump into all of that, tell us a little bit about you and your background. How did you get into this game? Tell us all about you.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. I got into this back in about 2017, 18. I opened my first travel card in 2017. It was actually a Delta co-branded card. I knew nothing about travel hacking. This was literally just to get a free flight here or there, some extra benefits when I'm flying. And then I started dipping my toes into the water, and you start hearing about different benefits and things. And I attended a one-day seminar in 2018, and that really kicked off my travel hacking game. It was like the light bulb turned on in my head. And after that, I started opening up a couple cards at a time. I maybe had only had 3 or 4 cards in my wallet. And then, the more you start learning about this world and getting free trips and getting to actually use these points, the more I became kind of engulfed in it. And my journey was always with Delta for the most part, because I've lived in Sky Team hubs my entire life. And so naturally, I'm just on Delta flights a lot more often. And I started hacking status back in 2018 was when I pursued status. I went from no status to silver medallion the end of 2017. And in 2018, I earned diamond medallion for the next year.
What was the seminar that you attended?
It was a Thrifty Traveler seminar. I had attended it just for one day. They used to run an in-person class. I think it was the second session that they'd ever done that I had attended. And it was a great way to just be immersed in this world. At the time, there was blogs about this, but there wasn't a lot of classes or things that were really tangible. And this was in my backyard. So it was just an easy way for me to kind of get used to it and get familiar with different programs.
What are the Delta hubs that you've lived in?
I'm from Minneapolis originally. So I started there, which is originally a Northwest hub, actually. And then I moved to Michigan. So I was doing, Detroit and Michigan based, back to Minnesota, and now I'm in Seattle.
Awesome. And you haven't really delved in with the other things, like Seattle's a big Alaska hub or something like that.
So it's funny when you mentioned in the beginning about your one-time status match with Delta, I did that exact same thing with Alaska. I've flown them. I've unfortunately not had the best experience on my couple of flights with them. So I've not gone into the world of Alaska Airlines. However, I do fly other airlines if it's like a business award flight. That's kind of my sweet spot. If I find a great award deal on a flight, I will definitely hop over and fly a different product product, and it's fun to experience all the different products too.
What are a couple of your favorite award deals that you've ever jumped on, either with Delta or with a different airline?
I'm going to give like a range just to kind of show people, some different mileage options, not just business class or premium, cabins, but, I've gotten a 30,000 point deal a couple different times to Europe round trip on Delta miles. So I was able to earn, different things on that with status now that they've changed that rule. I upcoming have a first class ANA round trip flight to Japan for 110,000 miles round trip. And I've never flown first class international before. So only business. So I'm really, really excited about that opportunity. I've gotten some great cash deals as well from different things. Like I think my first flight deal was $297 to Iceland round trip on Delta. And I thought I was like, I will never beat this ever. And here we are still traveling years later.
That's amazing. Before we jump into how to get status, tell us a little bit about what do you get with status? Like, why is Delta status worth getting?
There's a full range of perks depending on your level of status. Some of them range from free checked bags to being able to get on the upgrade list or lounge access. You can get upgraded into certain cabins immediately upon booking. There's also certificates that you can get, both regional and global, so you can confirm yourself into the first class cabin or Delta One, their business class cabin. Things like that are some of the overarching benefits. But you can also earn additional miles on your ticket or your fare when you have status, so you're able to accumulate more miles faster as well. Those are some of the perks, but there's soft perks as well, like dedicated phone lines, priority boarding, and having priority. Like if your flight gets canceled, they're often going through and rebooking with some of their people with higher status first, things like that.
How many status levels are there?
So there are 4 published status levels that you can earn, and then there's 1 invitation only level. So there's silver, gold, platinum, diamond, and then the invitation only is the Delta 360.
Is silver worth getting? Like, what do you get at each of these levels? Is it kind of like Hyatt, where you don't really get too much with Discoverers or Explorers, and then it's a huge jump to what you get with Globalists, and who even knows what you get with the Secret Hyatt? Invitation only, but what do you get with each of the different levels of status with Delta?
Yeah, that's a great question. I personally always say that the sweet spot is platinum, and it seems like a hard jump to get to considering that's like the 3rd tier, but there's some ways utilizing their credit cards that it can be a little bit easier than it might appear to achieve platinum status even without flying a whole ton. And I think one of the big jumps that you're going to see there is immediately upon booking a main cabin ticket, you will get cleared into Comfort Plus upon availability, which, as long as there's a seat available, they'll clear you into Comfort Plus. And I think that that's a huge benefit for people who are looking for upgrades. With that, you also get to pick a choice benefit at the platinum level. You're going to have choice benefits like the regional upgrade certificates. You can choose gift cards, miles, you can gift status to someone else. So I think a whole plethora of benefits kind of once you see platinum, and you're going to really notice the difference. If you're on the silver or gold end, you might see upgrades into Comfort Plus. So, you definitely is still an upgraded experience. You get free snacks, drinks, a little bit more leg room, things like that. But the jump, I think, in that experience will be in once you hit platinum.
And you can get upgraded into Delta One with these?
So with the certificates, you can. I've learned, other programs. I don't know many of the other airline programs as well. I know that other ones you can get into their business class cabins for long haul flights. Delta, you can only do that if you are using these certificates.
For anybody who's not familiar with Delta One, tell us about Delta One. What is it? What makes it special?
Delta One is a lie flat business class seat. So you're going to get the experience of walking on and getting offered orange juice or champagne. You're going to get to select your meal in advance. They've got a full plethora of options, typically from like a beef short rib is a common one that I see on the menu a lot, to like 4-cheese pasta, or, just a much more elaborate meal. The service is there. You're going to have so much more space. The first time I sat down in the seats, I was just grinning from ear to ear. Like, I'm 6 feet tall. So for me, being able to like stretch out and like put my feet down and like not be able to feel like I'm in this tiny airplane seat and get comfortable was just a surreal experience, the first time that you get to go through it. And you've got a very attentive cabin crew. You're just getting kind of a really elevated experience. And the difference, even I think this goes from, many business class seats, is the trip doesn't start for me once I land anymore. It starts, at the airport. You get that experience. You'll also get lounge access when you're flying Delta One internationally. So it's just a a full immersive kind of experience and makes flying fun.
What are the different international routes where if somebody's like, oh, that sounds great, I really want to fly this, what routes would somebody be flying in order to experience Delta One?
So you can actually experience it on a handful of routes domestically. So that is an opportunity. Like if you are someone who's maybe international travel isn't, your thing, or you haven't really had the opportunity to earn enough miles or whatever the case may be to go the international route yet, they do some like transcontinental Delta One routes, like at certain times of the day. I think there's like one a day that goes between Seattle and JFK. I had friends literally this last weekend fly from Seattle to San Diego, and they actually had a Delta One seat and they were upgraded into it. So they don't have status, just have the reserved card, and we're upgraded into Delta One, and we're sending, all of those pictures. So that is a route or an option for people if maybe the international route is just out of their realm of possibility right now, to be able to still have that experience and get like a taste of what it's like and put your legs up, get that seat all the way down into a bed and have that experience.
So tell us about Delta 360, which is the invitation only, which a lot of people sometimes are like, what are these? Because you can never find any information about it on the internet. Do you know what they give you with 360?
It's very true. It's very elusive. There's not a lot of information. There's not a lot of information on who gets invited, and it seems to be hub dependent. I'm a part of different groups that like talk about it. A lot of it's, your total investment with the airline. So coming down to like the dollars that you spend each year on the airline. So it's people that are, road warriors and really getting on that plane and doing long haul business class flights, often from just what I've seen. But some of the differences that I've heard about, and none of this is published, you can't find this anywhere, but they will hold planes for someone who's 360 if they need to get on that next flight. They're going to get that Porsche service. So there's a Porsche service that is offered. You can't like book it or anything, but it's a potential, service that they call a surprise and delight. So they meet you at your plane and they take you from your disembark off the plane. You don't even go down the jet bridge. You go down a set of stairs. You get taken from in a Porsche to your next flight or the lounge or whatever it may be. Most of the time it's to your next flight because you have a tight connection. So it's just driving you straight to your next plane. You get that more often is what I hear with 360. You get a gift, you get your own phone line, you get recognized. I noticed there was someone on my flight last week. They were like, oh, thank you for being a 360. And I almost wanted to go and be like, tell me more about being a 360 member, because it's so hard to find information. But it seems like, every perk that you get with Diamond is just like turned up a notch.
Do you know what model of Porsche? Is it like a Porsche SUV or like a Porsche sedan, or what is it?
They have different ones. So like different, and they have multiple different ones at different airports. I was just in MSP this last week. They currently have 3 Porsches and they have 2 sedan style ones. I'm forgetting if it was the name of the style, and then they had one like sports car version of the Porsche. So we took turns like driving around in that one for this, MSP lounge opening event that we had. But they'll have different style ones at different airports. And there's typically, I don't know how many Atlanta has, but it sounds like most of the hubs have 3 to 4, maybe 5 Porsches if you're maybe Atlanta, but like 3 to 4 that they'll take people around in. And that is someone's job, to just drive the Porsche and surprise and delight people.
That is crazy. I had heard of this briefly because Brian Kelly, the points guy, has access to it. And he was like rushing through an airport in one of his stories. And he's like, yeah, do we have time to go to the lounge? And he like turned the phone towards like the driver, who was like, absolutely not, man. Like, you are already running late to your flight. So speaking of lounges, tell us a little bit about Delta Sky Club lounges and how do you get into there? Do you have to be flying Delta Business? Do you have to have status? Do you have to have certain credit cards? What's the deal with the lounges?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to access it. I would say most people these days access it through a credit card. So, common credit cards that you could get access for, complimentary access, would be the American Express Platinum card, the personal and business, as well as the Delta Reserve card. There's the Delta Platinum card, can get you access with a fee per entry. So if you're not traveling a ton but still want that experience, it's something that you can go in and maybe experience here and there when you're at the airport. You're able to select it at certain status levels for free as a benefit. But otherwise, to access it, I would say more traditional routes, aka like through your ticket, a lot of that is gone. So you're not going to get access with it for like a first class domestic ticket. You will for business tickets. There are some, benefits with status to be able to get in, but a lot of that is being removed because of the lounge overcrowding. It's a common theme that we're hearing right now. So the lounge rules have been changing a lot recently. So credit card seems to be, the most feasible way for a lot of people to gain access regularly and not be restricted.
When you get upgraded for having Delta status, does that tend to happen not as much if you're flying in hubs like everybody and their mom has status in Atlanta, right? And it's going to happen a lot more if you're flying like Salt Lake City or something else that's a smaller airport, or do you still get upgraded even if it's Minneapolis or Atlanta?
I almost view Delta Comfort it's an upgrade, and so I get upgraded into that every single time. But because I'm getting upgraded into that every single time, first class upgrades are kind of like what I'm viewing as like the coveted upgrade that I'm looking for. And it is hard to get that through Atlanta specifically. I don't find it as difficult really as much anywhere else. Occasionally LA or JFK might be a little bit more difficult, but we are headed on a trip tomorrow to Las Vegas. We got upgraded 3 days in advance into first class. So we've already, got our seats picked, everything there. Hubs, you're going to run into that just because there's a lot of people who are traveling, these road warriors all the time. So it's just kind of a known thing. I think that's where maybe achieving silver status or gold status can be really beneficial for people if they're out of smaller airports, because you're actually going to get upgraded. My brother was flying with silver status, and he was getting upgraded in first class out of smaller airports that maybe are close to hubs, but more regional airports where you're being funneled into it, and he'll get first class upgrades here and there a little bit more often. But hubs are something you kind of gotta watch for. Atlanta's a tough one because it's where the headquarters are, so you've got a lot of people flying and a lot of people with status there.
So let's talk about how to actually get these statuses, because all of these benefits sound super, super cool. And I'm sure everybody who's kind of crammed back in the main cabin is like, oh, Comfort Plus sounds great. So how do you get status with Delta at the different levels? Let's just start with silver. Let's work up to it.
Yeah. A lot of the times people I think are going to think that they have to get on an airplane to earn a lot of this status, especially for some of these lower levels of status. You can achieve silver status almost solely through a credit card. So not 100%, but it comes down to 4 categories, but there's 2 main categories, essentially how much you're flying and how much you're spending. So the first one is how much you're flying. They are tracking these things called MQMs, and they're also tracking MQSs. And you have to fill one of those 2 buckets to hit that requirement to get status, and you have to fill one of the second level buckets, which I'll get to next. So MQMs are medallion qualification miles, and MQSs are medallion qualification segments. Most people are going to be earning in their status off of MQMs. Segments are more for people who are taking these regional flights. So back when I lived in Michigan, I would earn 4 segments on every single flight I took because I had to connect through Detroit. I was flying out of a tiny airport. I'd have to go to Detroit and then Detroit to wherever else I was going. So for a round trip ticket, I would get 4 segments. Most people, that are achieving status or flying a lot, I see are going more for the MQMs. Some credit card sign-up bonuses have MQM bonuses that you hit. And if you have one of their credit cards, you can also get additional MQMs for hitting certain spend requirements there. So the example for silver would be if you signed up for a credit card that has a 10,000 MQM sign-up bonus, and once you hit your spend requirement and you hit that, and then you hit $25,000, you'll get another 10,000 MQMs. It's 25,000 for silver status. And so you're 5,000 MQMs away, and you haven't even stepped on a plane yet. If you spend $25,000 in a year on one of their credit cards, the Platinum or Reserve, you can get this thing called an MQD waiver. So you don't have to worry about how much money you spend on flights. You could be flying for free. It does not matter, using points or whatever. And it gives you that waiver where you don't have to worry about your dollar spend anymore until you're trying to hit Diamond status. Diamond, it goes up from $25,000 a year on that card to $250,000 a year on that card. So a big, big jump to hit Diamond. So I think that's where silver and gold, if you are trying to achieve that status, getting one of their credit cards that can help you earn some of those MQMs that way is a great way to do it. If you're not someone who's in the air every single week, or maybe not even every single month or every other month, you're able to still kind of access some of those benefits through spending on their credit cards.
I can't believe we've already recorded more than 100 podcast episodes. It feels like we just started yesterday, but we've already covered so many great points and miles strategies on this show and have many more to come. If you're new to this show or looking to level up your points game quickly, I offer a bunch of resources at geobreezetravel.com/start here. It includes links to free consults, free trials to some of my favorite points tools, and also links to services like group coaching, which start at only $5 per session through the Patreon. Again, that's geobreezetravel.com/start here, which I have linked for you in the show notes.
So you mentioned that the sweet spot is platinum. If somebody was like, all right, maxed out my MQMs, how much do you still actually have to fly? Do you have to get MQMs and MQS, or that's one category, and then what's the other one?
Yeah, so the other bucket is your MQDs or credit card spend. So MQDs would be like what you're spending on the flight. There's some caveats there, so I can get into that a little bit too. And then the other one is your credit card spend, where I was saying if you spend $25,000 on that card in a year, you are going to hit your requirement. You don't have to worry about MQDs any longer, and that's for silver, gold, and platinum status. Once you get up to diamond, that's when it jumps up to the 250. And so you could potentially get silver status without stepping on a plane much. To get to gold or platinum, that is, I think, for, someone who is taking a couple trips a year. For example, my dad has had platinum for almost as long as I've had diamond, if not as long. And they don't travel for work at all. This is all personal travel, a couple trips a year. We travel more now, but at the time, we're talking maybe 3-ish international trips a year. But we're going pretty far for that, going to Europe at least, or maybe we do like one to somewhere in Asia. And if you're able to take a couple trips a year and stick with Delta and earn those miles, then you're able to, hit platinum status. And one of the ways that you can earn more MQMs if you aren't able to fly as much is paying for a premium cabin, because you will earn more MQMs on that ticket. So, if let's say you don't want to pay for Delta One, but if you buy Premium Select, you can still earn bonuses on that ticket by paying for that premium, and you get a little bit better of a flying experience. You might get more room at your seat. Like Premium Select is kind of like a recliner type of seat that Delta offers for their long haul flights. I just flew it to France this past month, and those are some ways to kind of pad your MQMs, maybe if you're not taking as many trips in economy as my dad was 5 years ago.
So it's not necessarily based on the physical number of miles that you're flying at all. You'll get more per mile flown, I guess,
on a premium ticket. So it is not, and I think that's a great point to point out, is that it's not based on the exact miles that you've flown. There's a tool online. I just search like Delta Unofficial SkyMiles Calculator. That tool allows you to kind of see what you'll probably be earning. Delta does now have it showing when you are checking out. It'll project your MQMs and your MQDs. So there is that. If you want to like just repopulate your flight in, you can kind of see what they're projecting that you'll earn. But there are bonuses for other cabins, so it's not your just direct miles flown.
And then you said in order to get diamond, you would have to spend $250,000, or this is for people who are just flying very often, right?
If you're using your spend for your credit cards, the other category is earning MQDs. So they raised it this year to hit diamond. It used to be 15,000 MQDs in a year, which MQDs, there's one caveat to it, and I'm going to get into it. It's my favorite part about Delta status and just like hacking it. Let's start with like the, traditional MQDs is how much money you're spending on a flight before the taxes and fees. So it does not include your taxes and fees. It's, your base dollar fare for that flight. That is going to be what goes into your MQDs. And so for diamond now, you would have to earn $20,000 worth of MQDs or spend $250,000 on your credit card to get that dollar portion of status, checked, that box checked. By the end of the year, I'd calculated with some work trips, I was probably going to be about $3,000 short. And at the time, it was just really not feasible for me to spend $3,000 on a plane ticket somewhere. So I started searching some ways to earn MQDs without spending money. And it exists, actually. You have to spend some money, obviously, but not as much money. And there's a nice hack through partner airlines where you can more MQDs than what you actually spend. There's a sweet spot that I can kind of get into if you're interested in hearing it at all.
Yeah, tell us about that hack. How do you do this without flying all that much or spending that much money?
Yeah, so the key is with partner airlines, and you have to be booking through the partner airlines. So when you are flying a Delta partner, no matter what level of class of service that you're flying, you are not earning MQDs anymore on how much you spent. Delta, I don't know if they can see it or not. I'm assuming they can't see it, which is why it's not calculated that way. So if you go to their website, there's actually a partner airline chart for each single partner that they have, and it will tell you for your class of service what your MQD percentage and your MQM percentage will be for flying that class with that partner airline, and that percentage that they give you is based on your distance flown. So it has nothing to do with the amount of dollars that you spent. So when we went to Malaysia for the weekend, it was a weekend trip to hit status. I earned 3,000 or 3,300 MQDs, and I spent about $1,100. And so that was by buying a premium economy ticket. The sweet spots for this type of hack is premium economy and above, because you're going to be earning around 30 to 40% of your distance flown in MQDs. You know, the 40% will be if you're flying business class, those sorts of things. So you're really getting the bang for your distance in this case. So we're flying to Malaysia, very far distance in a premium economy cabin. I went over to that Delta SkyMiles calculator that I mentioned earlier. I saw how many projected MQMs I was going to get from it, and I multiplied it by that fare class multiplier. That's what they refer to it as a fare class multiplier. And that tells you your projected MQDs that you're going to get from it. So last year I did the same thing. We went to London on a round trip business class ticket from JFK. We were flying Delta One, but we booked it through Virgin. So you can even be flying a Delta plane, but as long as you're booking it through a partner, on a cash fare, you can get these perks. And we got 3,300 MQDs or 3,400 MQDs from that flight by booking it with the partner and spending our $900 Virgin versus Delta. And that's a way that you can, earn status a little bit easier, save a little bit more of that money to spend on more trips, but still hit your status requirements.
You have to have it crediting to your Delta account, I assume. So like if you're booking something through a different SkyTeam member, like Air France or Virgin Atlantic or something, when it says like, where do you want these miles credited? You have to put in your Delta number there, I assume.
Yeah, you would put it in there because otherwise they would just credit it to if you have like an Air France account. So yep, you'll just put in your Delta and it'll go through. I see it, on my account information. You can kind of see your past history and you're able to book it right then and there.
You talked a little bit about some other status perks too, like companion fare tickets and like global upgrades and everything else. And I don't think we touched enough on those. Yeah. So now that people know, okay, if I really want to earn Delta status quickly, the trick is to book through a partner airline, premium economy or above, make sure it's a cash ticket. And there are tons of mistake fares for these all the time. So once you do have this status, how do like the companion pass tickets work, or how do the global upgrade certificates work, or anything like that?
Companion pass tickets are actually tied to the credit card. The upgrade, there's regional and global upgrade certificates, and those are tied to status. It gets so confusing, so I totally get like mixing the words. I do it myself sometimes. So companion certificates with credit cards are going to essentially be like a buy one, get one free ticket. You just pay the taxes and fees on the second ticket. When you have the Delta Platinum card, you get a round trip main cabin ticket to anywhere in the domestic US 48. When you have the Delta Reserve card, that gives you access to purchase, up to a first class ticket for that buy one, get one type of fare, which can be really nice if we've utilized them as positioning flights. So when we went to Bali, we actually used a companion certificate that we got from one of my credit cards to get us to LAX, where we then got on a flight deal to Bali that was like $600. So those are some ways that you can kind of maximize using those credit card benefits, as well as cheap flights if you're based out of somewhere that maybe doesn't offer that many flights or as many flights as some of these other hubs on the coast. For regional and global upgrade certificates, I think we touched globals a little bit, where you're going to be able to get that Delta One experience, or at least get upgraded into a premium cabin, premium select. But most of the time, you're able to get into a Delta One cabin on an international route, so like a long haul flight. Some of my favorite ones that I've done for the length of time was I've gotten round trip to Sydney, Australia, a couple separate times, where I've flown there and used two separate certificates, one for the way there, one for the way home. That's a 15-hour flight. That's a huge redemption to be able to use my certificate. And most of the time, I'm either getting a really great mileage deal or a cash fare on that flight, and I'm sitting in a premium seat to go on one of a really long flight. The regional upgrade certificates work regionally just like that. You can use them on it is a little slightly deceiving. It's not just domestic, which I think a lot of people think about. You can use them for like Mexico, and I think there's a few other areas where you can apply a regional certificate. You don't have to use kind of these coveted global certificates to get down there, but you're able to apply these certificates to your fare and get confirmed, or at least priority waitlisted, into the first class cabin. If you're able to find those transcontinental routes where you're flying a Delta One seat across the US, that's a great way to use those certificates if you are able to snag a spot. That's one of the premium ways to experience the Delta One for essentially free or as a perk of your credit card and be able to get upgraded into it.
That's awesome. Any other tips for people who are like, oh, I want to travel on Delta and be treated super special with all of the different status perks? Anything else that we should know about what perks are available and how to get them?
Yeah, I think the first thing would be, if you are get a good credit card with a sign-up bonus, and that can be a Delta credit card, or it can be, one that has miles that transfer to Delta. So, or a combination of the two. So maybe you're someone who uses the Delta American Express Platinum card because you get that BOGO certificate that you can use once a year. It gets you some mileage boosts and things like that. And then you also get, an American Express card where you can, just a non-co-branded one that you can transfer miles to, and get your miles up so that you're able to transfer them and get flying. Now, Delta has removed their restrictions on award tickets where you were not able to earn previously on it. So, if you're able to get your miles up and fly for free, but also earn towards status, that's a huge, huge benefit that didn't exist pre-COVID. Another thing that Delta removed post-COVID was they removed a lot of their change fees and restrictions around changes. So as long as you're not buying a basic economy ticket, you're able to change your ticket. And if the price drops, you're able to take advantage of that price drop and get an e-credit. And then my favorite thing to do is take that sum of e-credits that I have as I get the ticket for the cheapest fare absolutely possible. And then I splurge on a flight that maybe I wasn't planning on taking or didn't know if I was able to go on, or maybe I was only going to buy economy for that ticket, but now with my e-credits, I'm going to apply them and get a premium select flight or something like that. And some of those peripheral benefits that Delta has added in can help you kind of boost your status that way by being able to, again, use those e-credits for future flights and just kind of be able to travel more using some of the perks that they have.
Obviously, you are one of the foremost experts on Delta status on Instagram. So if you had to take all of your knowledge that you have learned about Delta status and all the different ways to hack it and pick your best piece of advice that I can fit onto an Instagram quote card, what would that piece of advice be?
Oh my God, it's a really tough question. I would say one of my most unknown pieces of advice or advice that people forget about is when you check a bag, make sure that you are timing it, because if it takes 20 minutes to get to baggage claim, you get 2,500 miles, and people are missing out on free miles left and right. So I think that that's a big miss or a big opportunity that people can get.
I love that hack. I know we've talked about it before, but people still are missing out on it. So we're going to keep hammering home that, guys.
When the door of the aircraft open is when the timer starts for your 20 minutes. And if your bag takes longer than 20 minutes from that door of the aircraft opening to arrive at baggage claim, you get 2,500 miles, and that's per person each way, not per bag, however. But for a round trip ticket, that can be 5,000 miles. And I just submit it if it's 15 minutes or over. I don't even time it anymore. I pretty much always submit it. And I think I've gotten denied twice, maybe. So that's a lot of miles that you are getting free that you can now spend on future flights. I post a video on this, I think probably once a quarter at least, maybe once every, other month. The video goes viral all the time. So many people don't remember this hack or forget about it. And you are going to be getting your miles up by making sure that you're submitting that form. It takes 2 seconds to complete.
Yeah, just have it bookmarked on your phone. You can submit it speculatively. And if you do qualify for it, you'll get the 2,500 points. If you don't qualify, they were just you don't qualify. They don't dock you or anything. People,
there's no mark on your account.
People in the comments are always just if you keep posting about this and it keeps going viral every single time, it's going to go away. They haven't taken it away yet, because I promise you guys, the amount of money that Delta makes from people booking tickets every time that this goes viral, being oh, I'm going to try to get my 2,500 points. That's $40 to Delta. Yeah. If you booked a ticket, they're happy. They're happy with this. And I know that, I think it was Ryan from Profits and Points. He has some status with Delta and gets free check bags. He said he will just check an empty bag sometimes, to bring back souvenirs or something. Yes. But then he'll just check an empty bag and then fill out the form. And sometimes you can get 2,500 points for just checking a free bag and it taking more than 20 minutes to get to baggage claim. And if you're oh, what can you really do with 5,000 points? You can drink fancy champagne in the Delta Sky Lounge. You can use those points for premium food and drink, not just plane tickets. Because I don't think we even talked about this, but a lot of people are like, Delta Sky Pesos. Is it even worth it? What's something you can do?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I feel like I've gotten so many good SkyMiles tickets too. I got a 9,000 SkyMiles ticket to round trip from Seattle to Cabo, main cabin. Like, this is not basic economy. I told you about the 30,000 points to Europe. My flights to Australia this past year, I went twice, 80,000 miles round trip. I think if you are going into the Delta website and typing in a specific destination with specific dates and you have no flexibility or you're not capitalizing on these like award fairs, yes, there's a lot of expensive tickets that are online, but there's a lot of deals too. And there's other amazing ways that you can use your miles, just like you were saying. Go to the lounge and splurge on some champagne.
Great advice. And speaking of great advice, can you give a shout out to somebody else on the internet who listeners should go follow for even more awesome points and miles tips?
Yeah, I love this account on TikTok. It's Top Knots and Layovers. She posts great content on how to maximize your luxury for minimum spend. So she holds status on a couple different airlines, Platinum with Delta, that's kind of like her sweet spot there, and a few other airlines in the US, and kind of talks about ways that you can hack status for someone who maybe isn't Delta loyal or a specific airline loyal. And it's just a great tips overall on, making sure that you're spending like the lowest amount possible, but you're getting the maximum amount of benefit back to you and kind of getting that taste of luxury.
Fantastic. And where can we find you on the internet?
I go by Janelle on a Jet. It's Janelle on both TikTok and Instagram.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Janelle, so much for coming onto the show, sharing with us all of your different tricks for getting Delta status and sharing with us what people can expect when they get that coveted status, because it sounds like you can get some really, really amazing perks, like maybe one day ride in a Porsche.
Maybe you'll get that Porsche ride someday.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. If any of the cards mentioned in today's episode piqued your interest, please check out the links in the show notes for more information on any of the cards. Also, if you apply for a card using the links on that page, I may receive a commission too, so please and thank you. P.S. I hear the links work better in Internet Explorer or Safari, and sometimes the credit card applications tend to glitch out in Chrome. Additionally, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to this podcast, leave a 5-star review, and share it with a friend. And if you would like to make even more travel hacking friends, please sign up for the Patreon to access our monthly masterclass hangouts. We dive deep into a particular points program each month, and you'll get to ask all of your travel hacking questions and enjoy being around other people who enjoy points and miles just as much as you and I do. If you would like an invite to the next one, head over to geobreezetravel.com/hangouts to sign up to be on the invite list. Take care and happy travels!